Hello, how are you doing? Thanks for joining me again. Hope you're well. I'm out and about today. I'm just about to leave the studio and go and shoot a roll of ortho film on the film camera. Just got hold of this. I've never shot ortho before and I think that could be quite good fun. And I'll be doing a video on that probably in the future. At least I'll show you the results. But this is just a little opportunity for me to have a chat as I walk to my location about how we fit photography into our lives, because I was thinking about this the other day and about the difficulty of finding space for photography in my life, and about how easy it is also for photography to take over life and just to become all-encompassing, and neither of those is really what I want, and probably not what you want as well. So I thought what I would do is just have a little chat about the way in which we can fit photography into our lives long term, and hopefully there'll be things that you've not heard before, probably lots that you have, but even if you have, it might reawaken those thoughts and help you on your path. And at the end, please do drop me some examples as well, things that I've not mentioned that would help me and would help other people who watch these videos find ways to find space in their life for photography. Right, so let us crack on. I will grab the camera and we'll go for a little wander. As I say, I need to go off to a location where I can shoot this film, which I'm very excited about. So, fitting photography into our lives. How do we do it? I think there are three areas to look at. The first is space, the second is time, and the third is money. And I'll try and look at those in turn, and there'll probably be a bit of overlap, but that's basically, those are the three areas. And the overarching thing, which if there's just one message to take away from all of this, it is organisation. And that can be covering all those three things: organisation of time, money and space. Because if you can do that, you'll be able to find time, space, money in your life for photography long term. And what I'm talking about is long term, because it's like all of these hobbies, they can come and go because there's not time for them, or they're becoming too much of a drain. So we don't want that. We need to make sure that doesn't happen. Okay, so the first of those, space. Now, in terms of the amount of gear you have, I'm a great believer in minimalism. Have as little as you can manage to get away with, either in terms of what you've got in your locker and in terms of what you take out with you on a shoot. So obviously that will vary from person to person, from the type of photography you do to different types of photography. But I've got the one camera and the one lens today, that's all I need. And quite often, that's all I need. If I'm doing a professional job, I usually need two bodies, so I can switch between two different lenses quickly. But usually I think one camera, one lens, maybe it's a zoom, maybe it's a prime. Again, thinking, organising your mind before you go to decide what you're going to shoot, that's all you're going to need. So if there's stuff you're not using, get rid of it. Give it to the charity shop or sell it. Make money for more film, cameras, printing, books, publishing, all that sort of stuff. It comes onto the money bit, but yeah, you're making space as well, you're not cluttering. And when you're out and about, you don't want to be carrying a big rucksack full of gear, just a camera and a lens, if possible. That's my advice. I like to have a pocketable camera. I usually go around with the Lumix. If it's just on a day-to-day basis, the Lumix with the pancake lens on it, it's brilliant, covers 90% of what I want to do, and it doesn't weigh me down, it's unobtrusive, it fits into my life. That's the whole point of this. So in terms of space as well, there's the product of your work, which is negatives, digital files, prints and so forth. Now, one thing I would say is don't scrimp on space for those, because they are the valuable bit. I used to just keep JPEGs when I shot digital, didn't keep the RAWs. They were taking too much space on the hard drive. That was a mistake. There were other reasons why I did it, but I wish I had those RAWs now. My latest hard drive has just run out of space. Very tempting just to offload a load of stuff that I don't think I'm ever going to need again and not have to go out and buy a new hard drive. But no, that is a false economy. Equally, if you are getting your negatives sent away to be processed, quite often you'll have the option of either getting a digital download or getting the negatives back, usually both. Get those negatives back, because you never know when you're going to need them, and technology will advance. You might be able to get more out of those negatives than was got out of the digital transfer that you got as part of the package. And it's also good to have a backup. In terms of space for your work, make a space for it somewhere else as well. Have a backup copy, because there's nothing worse than losing everything you've got in the terrible case that there's a fire, a flood, or some thief has really bad taste and comes to take all my work. But in terms of the physical product, you still have to manage the space. So there's always a temptation to want to show your work, and it is really nice to have some of it mounted on a wall at home. Can make you look a little bit arrogant, but you know, if it's worth showing, it's worth showing, and I like to show a bit of it. But in terms of prints, it's best to have them out of the way in a specific place which is organised. So I've got a drawer, and it's got a plastic box, one of those ones for when you're moving house, all my prints in that, in the studio, in a corner, out of sight of rodents and rain and all that sort of stuff, so it's safe. So you want to keep the space to a minimum for your stuff, but not scrimp on storage and have an off-site storage. And again, you may start thinking, well, that's a little bit going off the topic, but if you lose all your work, it's not going to encourage you to go on. You're going to take photography out of your life. So by protecting your stuff, then you are helping find space in your life for photography. And by not taking up just random places where you dump all your things willy-nilly, then you'll make space for it in your house, your studio, whatever you've got, your shed. Okay, so that's space. Now we come on to time, which is another valuable commodity that none of us have enough of. So how do we make time for photography? Well, one of the things that I think we can do, and one of the things that I do, is be project-based. I rarely take photographs that aren't part of a project. I can have multiple projects on the go at one time, but if I was just taking pictures without them being part of a project, I'd be missing things all the time now. I'd have to go and take photographs of everything, and so it can take over your life. If you restrict your photography to projects, it frees up all that rest of your time when you're not thinking about photography. Also, when it comes to the projects, it's great if you can make those projects that fit with your life anyway. So I used to be a commuter, so one of my big projects was about commuting, and it was the city at the times of day when I was leaving the office or coming into the office, because that fitted with my life. It didn't take up extra time. I didn't have to go out and take photographs again because I'd already done it in dead time that was going to be lost anyway. Equally, if you're a dog owner, you've got to take the dog out for a walk. Why not do dogs, do parks, do pet shops and vets and things as one of your projects, and you're using the time again. In terms of time as well, and this is maybe a little controversial one, but don't get me wrong, I don't think you shouldn't be friends with people that aren't into what you're into. But if your friends and your social circle share your interests, then you can do photography and socialising at the same time. I'm very lucky that my wife is interested in photography, not to the extent that I am, but she is interested in it, so that when we go away, if I want to go for a photo walk, she's happy to join me. If I want to talk about photography, she's happy to listen. She's not just doing me a service by listening so that I will do her a service by listening to what she's interested in later. We do obviously do that. That's part of any sort of relationship. But it is great that we have that shared passion, because otherwise we would have to make more time for it elsewhere. So if you have got friends who are into photography, cherish them and go and do photography. Go and do photography with them and talk photography with them. Make a social night out, a photography night out as well. But again, ring fence the time. Don't make it all about that, because again, we don't want our whole lives to be taken up with photography, do we? I don't think so. So another way in which you can do that is, if you're not sure what to do, if you're going to go and see a film, pick a film that has great photography in it. That way, even if the film turns out to be rubbish, you've learned something about photography, and so it hasn't been a waste of time. I heard really terrible things about Joker 2 and was thinking, oh, should I bother going to see it? I actually really loved it when I saw it. I thought it was totally misunderstood and a brilliant film. But even if I hadn't enjoyed it, it's hard to argue that the photography, the lighting, the set design isn't brilliant. So even if the content had been awful, I would still have got value for my money from having gone to see it. And that's the same with if you're trying to pick a series to watch on TV. You know, there are soap operas with good photography, there are thrillers with good photography, and the opposite. So it's finding those things and watching those rather than something else. Time can be sucked away by social media, and I hope this isn't an example of that. But I think it's really important to limit the amount of time you spend doing photography on social media. This video, I'm really glad you're watching it, but I think this particular one will probably work equally well as a podcast, probably better. You wouldn't have to look at my ugly mug walking through industrial estates. So listen to it on headphones on your way to work when you've got nothing else to do, rather than making time to watch it on TV, or put it on at bedtime. I'm sure this is an excellent way to lull yourself to sleep with this droning on. So at least then you've got some value out of it, and maybe subliminally you'll get all this brilliant information as you nod off. But yeah, don't spend all your time on social media. It's great to get critiques, to go to forums, to look at work on Instagram and web pages and things, but limit that time, ring fence it in the same way you would ring fence other content on your phone, because it's easy to get sucked down that rabbit hole and lose lots of time. So the final one of the three, the trinity of ideas, is money. And it's the big one, isn't it? How do we not spend so much money on photography that we don't have money for other things, and then we have to give up the photography because it's costing us too much? Or we don't save enough money from the rest of our life to buy the things we need, and we haven't got the film when we need it, we haven't got a camera that works for us, etc. And again, it's about organisation of finances. If you ring fence a certain amount of money for your camera gear, for your film, and if you compromise by maybe missing a couple of treats, you know, when I got this orthographic film I'm going to shoot, I didn't have a coffee that day in the cafe because that money was going to go on the film. I'd ring fenced it already for that. But I wouldn't do that every day and say, well, I don't have coffees anymore, I only buy film, because then the balance would be the wrong way. So it's about budgeting and making sure that you can maintain things long term. And again, this is where I come into the kit sort of stuff. Don't have more kit than you need. And if you've got stuff that you don't need, and you can, sell it to buy stuff that you do need, or film, or you know, other treats, so that everything fits. And I'm a great believer in second hand. You know, I think I've never bought a brand new car, and in the same way I rarely would buy a brand new camera, because what's out there second hand is pretty much as good, if not in some ways better, than what you could get new. So don't waste money on brand new equipment when you could get the same thing second hand. Obviously get it from somewhere that's reputable, preferably get a warranty, or get it somewhere that it's so cheap that if it doesn't work, you've not lost a great deal. Also, I'm really into shooting expired film. Again, I wouldn't recommend it for mission critical work, but in terms of the excitement of not knowing what you're going to get, which is part of the thrill of photography, you never know quite what you're going to get when you press the shutter. I can get a roll of black and white expired film for a quarter of the cost of the same film that's still in date. So that's a great way of saving money. Doing my own developing rather than sending it to a lab, all that sort of stuff. There's ways to save money so that you can make photography viable. And again, it's just that thing about, you don't have to have the best bit of kit. I'm a real advocate of saying you've got to do the best with what you've got. And it's that old thing you've probably seen on the internet lots of times. Send an expert out with a £1 camera and a novice out with a £1 million camera. Who's going to get the best results? It's always that way around, isn't it? And I just don't think you need to spend a fortune to be able to do a hobby. It's an expensive hobby, and it is hard to fit that into our lives. You've not got to neglect the other things around you. One other thing that's kind of, again, touches on all those three areas is the multitasking, which I guess is kind of fundamental to what I've been talking about. If you can go on holiday and it doesn't matter when you go or where you go, you're not really sure what to do, why not try and combine the holiday with photography? I went to Arles last year, I've been to Paris Photo on previous years, and I've still managed to have a really nice sunshine break, but I've also got a photography festival in there as well. And that kind of just planning ahead is really helpful. And in terms of, spending your time wisely and money wisely, etc., keeping an eye on the calendar. So is there going to be an event on in town, like a parade or a fireworks display, to give me an opportunity to do photography? Is it something that I would like to go to anyway? And so I can kill two birds with one stone. And rather than taking a day out of my life just randomly to go and take photographs, it's kind of the project-based thing again I'm talking about here. I will go to this event and I will photograph it, and that will make it fun, and I'll still get the event as well. So there you go. I could waffle on for hours because there's so much to talk about, but it's easy to get distracted and to go off on tangents, and I don't want to do that because I've got this film to shoot and the light is starting to look a bit grim. So I will leave it there, but I hope you found some of this useful. If you did, please do drop me a like, share with your friends, because it really helps me out. It allows me to do the photo videos that I really want to do, going out and doing stuff, experimenting with new things that I can bring to you and share with you. But that's it for this time. Thanks so much for joining me. Like, share, subscribe, all that business. Enjoy what you're shooting. Take care of yourselves. Bye for now.